Today on the channel, we're going to take another look inside of Eddie's trick bag. Yeah. Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to take another look inside of Eddie's trick bag. Due to the popularity of the first video that I did about a week ago, we're going to take another look at some of the tips and tricks that I can give you to help you sound like Eddie Van Halen and to give you some insight into some of his techniques that were totally his own, that were really cool, really rad. So let's take a look. The last video I covered a lot of stuff, harmonics and squeals and whammy bar dives. We didn't touch on these topics. So the very first thing we're going to talk about is tapping, finger tapping. Everybody associates finger tapping with Eddie, so I intentionally didn't put it in the first video because I thought it was a little too cliche, but you know, in the second video, let's look at some finger tapping techniques of Eddie's. So we'll start off with the basic fundamentals, the easiest types of tapping that Eddie does, and it's 3 notes per string. So what we're going to do, let's take something very similar to eruption. So we're going to do a pattern like this, then I'll tell you some frets. So what Eddie likes to do is create a pedal tone, and we're doing a tapping pedal tone on this B string on the 12th fret, which is actually a B. And Eddie outlines chord shapes. So he'll play major and minor chords. If you don't know what major and minor chords are, that's okay, but if you understand the concept of major, minor, suspended chords, diminished, augmented, it helps because Eddie liked to outline chord shapes that went in key with the song that he was playing. So let's take, I'm going to take an E minor shape for you. So an E is on the B string on the 5th fret, and then a G is on the 8th fret, and then the B is on the 12th. So that's an E minor, that's an E minor triad. So if you're playing an E and you're doing, it's going to be in key, right? So Eddie liked to take minor chords and major chords, and what he does is he'll tap and then he'll pull off. You're going to take your finger and you're going to pull off like that, and then hammer on, and then hammer on, pull off. And speed up. Then we can take this finger and move it up a fret to the 9th fret, and that's going to make it a G sharp, which is a major E chord. So 3 notes per string outlining a basic chord shape is very, very Van Halen. And then you can move this hand around a little bit. Eddie liked to take this triad shape. And move it around like that. Okay, so that's one tapping technique. So now I'm going to show you a little bit of a variation on that. I'm going to take this triad back to the E, G, and the B. Now watch what I do with this hand. I'm going to go. So this hand is basically going and I'm moving this hand like that. You like to move that hand around a little bit. If I change it to a major chord, sounds a lot more Van Halen. All right, cool. So there's another 3-note per string type of technique that you can do. Now, one thing Eddie liked to do also is do 4 notes per string. And what I mean by that is we can take this same shape, but we're going to add the ring finger. So what I'm doing is just descending, tapping, pull off, and keep pulling off. You hear this in Hot for Teacher where you go. And all he's doing is he's hitting this 12th fret, and then he pulls off and glissando down. You can take your pointer finger and move it down 2 frets also. Watch this. Now what's a little bit more complicated is you can do ascending like that and go. Slowly. One thing that you got to do is take your hand and rest it on the strings, otherwise you'll get a lot of extraneous string noise. So I'm resting my hand on the strings that I'm not playing. Now watch this. This is another technique, 4 notes per string. We're going to take that, and I'm going to go like this. The pattern I'm going to tap is, and in between that I'm going to tap on the 12th fret. Now check it out. I'm gonna do linearly a thing. I'm gonna go the same pattern down each string. And all I'm doing is, but I'm tapping on the 12th fret between those notes. Now check it out, I'm going to change this to the major chord. I'm going to do 4 notes per string and go like this. And all I'm doing is, remember to keep your hand on the strings. And then we're going like this. And if you're like Eddie in Live Without a Net and you're really feeling it, you got to look up a little bit and be like, now the last tapping thing that I'm going to show you is sometimes he incorporates an open string. You hear this in songs like Spanish Fly, Hot for Teacher. So we've got the A. We're gonna do this on the A string, like Hot for Teacher. So you're gonna get this string going by starting on the 12th fret, but you're just gonna pull off. So you hear that open A, and you're gonna go. It's open 3, 7, and then 12. Quite a bit of a stretch, and that's what we're doing there. And then you're gonna pluck this string, pull off, and I'm pulling off on this to get that open A. And then if you work it up to speed, it's like this. Then if you move this up 2 frets, it's the next part of Hot for Teacher. So, and then go to the D string, then go to the G string, then this 4 string, 4 notes per string tapping. All right, cool. Finger tapping. There's a huge well of information and just juicy stuff in finger tapping. Nowadays, modern players have taken finger tapping to like its limits, but I still think Eddie's finger tapping is the best. So there's a lot of Eddie Van Halen finger tapping stuff that I encourage you to mess around with. What really helped me learn this stuff was watching Live Without a Net thousands of times, and seeing Eddie, obviously Eruption, doing all that. But in Live Without a Net, you see Eddie do stuff like. You just see him moving his hand around, so I'm like, let me try some shapes. A lot of that stuff you just create on your own and play the same stuff on the next string. Linearly moving around the fretboard is a very Van Halen-esque thing. So let's talk about that. The next thing in Eddie's trick bag is linear patterns. What I mean by linear patterns is when you play one thing on one string, you repeat it on every single string. One of the best ways this is exemplified on a Van Halen tune is like at the end of the song, on the end of the solo for Jump, he does a run that sounds really complicated and difficult, but he's basically playing these notes, and he goes right up. But he hammers on. He's like. So you got to get proficient at hammering these notes on. Let me move this down a little bit. What we're doing is you can play this anywhere on the fretboard. So what I'm doing is I'm going, for instance, we'll start on the 12th fret. 12, I'm doing 12, 13, and 15. Like that. And I'm not picking. Watch my right hand. Watch how little movement is going on. I'm palm muting a little bit. So Eddie liked to do those linear things, which made it was out of key technically, but it was a mode. He was playing in modes without really being aware of it. He just knew it sounded cool. Which gave Van Halen kind of a jazzy sound. Jazz is very modal. And Van Halen played stuff that swung. It was like big band swing because of Eddie's father, who was a jazz musician. And Eddie, not really knowing what he was doing, he just knew what sounded good with his ear. He wound up playing a lot of stuff that was very modal sounding, and that's why a lot of his solos are so unique, because there's there's off notes in there technically. They're not like the note a lot of people would go for, which makes it really cool. Now check this out. You can take this, if you're on the B and the E string, I'm just going with this hand, and I'm hammering on. Now check this out. You can go. It's kind of Van Halen-esque. Now, think about this way. Let's do this. This is like a diminished run. This is really wicked. So I'm gonna put my middle finger on the 12th fret, and then I'm gonna be 2 frets down on the 9th and 2 frets up on the 15th. So it sounds like. And I'm gonna linearly do this whole thing all the way up each string, and I'm going to do the same exact technique where I'm just doing downstrokes and I'm hammering on, so it's going to sound like. What I might do is then go. Now check it out. I'm going to play it fast. And I'll play it up even higher. Eddie loved linear stuff like that, where he just hammered on. One last linear thing I'll show you is kind of heard in Ice Cream Man, where he goes. I can't even do it. My hands aren't even warmed up for tonight, but this one's really tough. So what we've got here is 12, 16, and then 19. 12, 16, 19. And on that B string and the E string, it sounds like. You can also tap it. So what that is a three notes per string pattern. Once again, 12, 16, and 19. It's a major chord. And if you remember this pattern, there's one note, there's 3 frets that separate it. So up on 4 frets, you got that. And then 2 frets separate that. So if you want to do it down here, you can go. So that's linear and that's finger tapping together. So we incorporated 2 of Eddie's tricks from his trick bag. Okay, so one thing that people don't really think about with Eddie and the trick bag is his use of volume, his volume knob. Eddie's guitars were rigged with 1 volume knob pretty much throughout his entire career, right? Just 1 volume knob. And Eddie had, he used quite a bit of gain. He had his amps cranked. But he didn't have like super chug gain. Eddie had a very mid-rangey sound with quite a bit of grit, but it was all amp-driven grit. And the Seymour Duncan JB pickups work wonderful for Eddie's tone, and a nice Marshall mid-rangey sound, so it has that bite. And one thing that tone does for you is when you roll back on your volume, check this out. Here's full volume. I'm going to roll back. Now check it out. So you got that little bit of grit. Eddie did not use a clean sound. He used a high gain amp, balls out, distortion, but he rolled back. And what that does is that gives you headroom. It gives you tone, and it gives you presence in that note. So if I were to just play like a clean amp, like a squeaky clean amp, it wouldn't have any balls to it. But when you roll back with a high gain amp and you roll back, it's not super clean. But you know, Van Halen's music was not clean music. It was kind of clean. But that's where he comes up with stuff like you know, you hear him when he does 316 live, for instance. He'll go. Now you can play with your hands. You can roll back a little bit more if you want. You can finger pick. Sounds really clean. And then watch. Then roll back. Plus, Eddie liked to do volume swells in this stuff. Like, it'd go, So a lot of volume swells in songs like Doctor. But use your volume knob to roll back and get clean. And avoid clean amps. Clean amps suck. All right, cool. Now we're going to talk about another technique. Another technique in Eddie's trick bag is suspended chords. Suspended chords, well, all that means is you're taking a chord like a major chord. A major chord sounds happy. We'll take a D chord. All right, and then this is the major third of the chord. And we're going to raise it up one, which makes it a sus4. And then you can take it down here and make it a sus2. All right, so the reason this is Van Halen style is Eddie loves sus chords. Jump, Panama, Unchained. I mean, pretty much Dance the Night Away, you know, probably 75% of all Van Halen songs had sustained chords in them, suspended chords. So they sound like this. Suspended chords all over the place in that song. So Eddie liked to do a lot of chugs and then put the suspended chords. Clearly he laid the groundwork for a lot of 80s hair metal guys, where you know you hear stuff all over the place, Rat and Poison, you know, Pretty Boy Floyd, Britney Fox. They all did it, man. But suspended chords are really cool. So basically, learn some suspended chords. The most obvious one is like the bar chord like this. Or if you take your hand and you go like, and we're playing it like this. Okay? Another way to do suspended chords would be like, Then you roll back on your volume a little bit, and you can really get those suspended chords to ring out. So we're incorporating two of Eddie's tricks. All right, so this is going to give us a little bit of a segue into our next topic, which is going to be tap harmonics. Eddie liked to outline chord shapes with harmonics. So one thing you got to do when you do these tap harmonics is you got to hit the note 12 frets above where you're fretting it. So let me give you an example. We're going to play a bar chord. We're going to do an E-shaped bar chord. Now 12 frets above that is, on this we're looking at 12 frets above these three strings, which is, so naturally you get harmonics on the 12th fret, like, because this is being fretted down here on the nut, so 12 frets up, you get harmonics. So we're going to take this E shape, and then you can tap these harmonics up here. So like with Women in Love, he's taken this chord, an E to a B, and then he's going D to an A. And what I'm doing is I'm outlining the chords up here. Now this B, then a D with a sustain chord in it. So down here it sounds like, but up here we're going. You can also hear him do this in a lot of songs. Girl Gone Bad, he does this sustain chord. He's going this A sus2 to an F major 7, and he's outlining the chords here. Then he does it in 3/16 where he goes. So Eddie liked to take his chord shapes and outline them and do those tap harmonics. Quintessential Eddie Van Halen trick. So it's harmonics, it's tapping, and a lot of times it's on over a sus chord, like a sus2 or a sus4, or just a major chord or a note. Something like that. So, all right, the last thing we're going to talk about today is speed picking. Eddie butterfly picked. He would hold his pick between the middle finger and his thumb, and he would butterfly pick like this, and you'd see his hand move like this. I cannot do that, and I don't recommend anybody developing this technique this way because, I mean, if you want to, that's fine, but it's not the most efficient, but it worked for Eddie, so who am I to say don't do it? But I would recommend you working on taking one string, one note, like say for example this E on the E string, and you got to work on alternate picking like this, and you want to use just the very, very tip of the pick. You don't want to be digging in really hard, and you want to angle that pick so it's kind of, if the string is like this, you want to angle the pick kind of like this, and alternate down, up. You don't have a lot of arm and wrist action. So Eddie liked to climb up major scales, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, or similar modal things like that. For example, he'd like to go. You hear it in Eruption. You know, you hear that in there. Sometimes you'll hear Eddie going. And all he's doing is going, or slowly, and sped up. You want to make sure that your picking hand matches the speed of your fretting hand. It's very easy for your brain to let your right hand get quicker than your left hand. Happens to me all the time. I have to be aware of that and catch myself. The best way to work on this is with a metronome, and just have that metronome. And just stay with it slowly. Paul Gilbert has a wonderful free video now on YouTube where Paul Gilbert talks about, you know, this one thing he does. He does that exercise. You know, anyway, I can't really do it tonight. But speed picking. It'll come in handy all over the place. A lot of times it's just one note. Or like Hop for Teacher. So speed picking. Angle the pick, just the very, very tip of that pick. Try not to tense up really hard. Practice 3 notes per string. Branch it out a little bit. You can be like, you can go down. You can go up. You can go up and down. I think this 1, 3, 4 and back down again is the most Van Halen-esque. And the ascending. So there you go. Another look into Eddie's trick bag. I hope you liked the video and the lesson. If you like this kind of content, hit the notification bell, subscribe, please. It helps me out. Comment below, and as always, have a great day. Peace out.